right, so you ready to, like, dive into something kind of creepy?
Yeah,
It's fascinating, though.
definitely.
Dogman encounters. Have you ever heard of these things?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're like these creatures, they're kind of like werewolf figures, and they're all over the Midwest.
Yeah, and we've got all these stories we're going to go through today,
Yeah.
and some of them are, like, really scary.
Oh, they're super creepy, and it's interesting how all these recent sightings that we're going to talk about, they kind of echo all these ancient legends,
Oh, yeah.
like werewolves and other shapeshifters, and it makes you wonder
Totally.
if all these stories that have been passed down for centuries, maybe they are rooted in something real.
Right, like, these creatures have been around way longer than we think, and these stories are, like, humanity's way of explaining them.
Exactly. I mean, the Dogman, it's not like a new thing. It taps into something really primal, a fear of the wild,
Yeah.
a fear of the unknown, and that's been with us forever.
For sure. Okay, so let's get into the specifics. So we're focusing on the Midwest, where there's a ton of Dogman reports.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking, like, multiple states, dozens of encounters, and the stories, even though they're from different places and times,
Right.
they have some really eerie similarities.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes all these accounts so compelling. You'd expect there to be some regional variations.
Right.
But there's this very specific image of the Dogman,
Yeah.
tall, muscular bipedal with a wolf-like head and these really creepy human-like hands.
Yeah.
It's like there's an archetype at play here,
So-
something that's ingrained in our minds.
So it's not just like random sightings of a weird animal.
No.
It's like a specific pattern, a description that keeps coming up again and again.
Yeah.
And that detail about the hands, that's what makes it go from a big scary animal to like something else entirely.
Absolutely. And people even talk about how they're intelligent,
Yeah.
And they talk about their supernatural abilities, and it's really hard to explain away.
That's what gets me. Those details that make you question everything you thought you knew.
Totally.
So let's unpack some of these firsthand accounts.
Okay, let's do it.
We'll start in Minnesota. Seems like there's a lot of Dogman activity there.
Definitely. One account that stands out to me comes from Ottertail County.
Okay.
And it was this guy driving along a country road at dusk, and he saw a group of deer, a doe, and 2 fawns.
Okay. So far, so good.
Yeah, he stopped to watch them, being a nature lover.
Right. Is Minnesota? I mean, deer sightings are probably everywhere.
Yeah, but then he noticed something behind a tree, and it looked like it was stalking the deer.
Oh, no.
And this is where it gets weird. He said it was standing upright,
Okay.
bipedal, and he could see one of its hands gripping the tree,
Uh-huh.
and it was like a human hand.
Oh, wait, hold on. Human-like hands. That's not a bear. That's not a wolf.
Right, and he got a good look at this thing because he's a hunter, so he knows wildlife.
Okay.
He said if it stood up all the way, it would be over 7 feet tall.
Wow.
Muscular build, a snout, the whole 9 yards.
I'm already getting chills. What happened next? Did it see him?
Well, the deer ran away, of course,
Yeah.
and the creature kind of turned and looked right at him as if he had blown its cover.
Oh, gosh. That's like straight out of a horror film.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can imagine that feeling.
It's scary.
So what happened? Did he just drive away?
He drove off as fast as he could, and he even went back the next morning to see if he could find tracks.
Oh, wow.
He said the ground under the tree was bare, but leading up to the tree were 3 canine prints in the snow.
Oh, wow.
But they were weird. They had these 4-toe-like marks.
Okay, so we have a good description. We have this scary encounter, and then even some physical evidence.
We did.
Even if it's just tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't just a vague story. This guy saw something strange.
He did. And we have more accounts from Minnesota that kind of confirm this.
Oh, really?
There's this guy who was in the Air Force.
Okay.
He was stationed at an Air Force base in Duluth. And he said he saw this massive wolf dog-like creature. And it was practically eye level with him. And he was sitting in his truck.
Eye level in a truck that's got to be 7 or 8 feet tall at least.
I know. And he got a good look at it, too.
He did.
Because he saw it jump down a slope, so he saw its hindquarters.
Oh, wow.
He talked about its long tail, its huge paws, and that wavy matted fur.
Okay.
He even said it was like a blonde or light brown color.
Interesting. So we're getting a good idea of what it looks like, how big it is, and how it behaves.
Yeah.
And it's consistent with that first account from Ottertail County.
Yeah.
But you were talking about supernatural abilities earlier.
Right.
Do any of these Minnesota reports mention that?
Well, there is one from Washington County. That's kind of strange.
Okay.
It was this guy who was rollerblading,
Okay.
and he saw this creature, and he described it as this, like, wiry, gray-haired werewolf standing at least 7 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
And he said that he could tell that the creature was smelling him, like, trying to get his scent.
Like a dog.
Yeah, but here's the weird part. He could see its breath like it was freezing cold out,
Okay.
even though it was the end of June.
That is weird.
Yeah.
That's not just a big animal. There's something else going on there.
Right.
It makes you think about all those werewolf legends and wonder if there's more to them than just stories.
Yeah, and it's not just European folklore either.
Oh, right.
Native American cultures have their own shapeshifter legends,
Yeah?
often tied to like their beliefs and practices, like the skinwalkers,
Right.
the Navajo tradition.
Yeah.
They think that some people can transform into animals.
So we have all these stories about human-animal hybrids,
We do.
especially ones that have canine features.
Yeah,
And now we have these modern-day sightings that are like exactly like the old stories.
exactly.
It's almost like those old fears have like become real.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, are these just like people's imaginations
Right.
because of all the stories, or is there something real to these legends?
Yeah.
Could there be something out there, something we haven't figured out yet that's been hiding for centuries?
That's a good question. A lot to think about, but this is just the beginning.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have so many more encounters to go through
Right.
from all across the Midwest, and they all have their own scary little details.
They do, and a lot of them go way beyond just seeing something. We
Right.
have stories of aggression and even attacks
Oh,
that make the Dogman seem even more terrifying.
well, I am officially hooked.
All
Let's hear about some more of these encounters.
right, let's do it.
Yeah, those Minnesota encounters are pretty crazy. And it's not even just what they look like. It's like they're smart, maybe even something more than that. And that's where it gets really scary.
Right, and it's interesting how those sightings kind of change as you go across the Midwest. It's
Yeah.
almost like these creatures are adapting to like the changing landscape,
Yeah,
moving closer to where people are as their natural habitat shrinks.
that's a scary thought. Like they're being pushed out of their territory into ours. And it reminds me of that one encounter from Pennsylvania, in the Allegheny National Forest,
Oh, yeah.
where this group of campers saw something.
Yeah, that one's interesting because there were multiple witnesses.
Right, that always makes it more believable.
For sure. This was in October 2018, and this group of friends, they were camping and they kept hearing all these weird sounds like howls, growls, that kind of thing.
Okay.
They thought it might be a bear or some coyotes, so they grabbed their flashlights and went to check it out.
I already have a bad feeling about that.
Yeah, well, they got to this clearing, and like right there in front of them was this huge beast standing on two legs.
Oh, no.
They said it had a wolf-like face, reddish-brown fur, and these giant claws on its hands and feet. It was like something out of a horror movie.
I bet it didn't just stand there and say hi.
No, it charged right at them.
Oh, my gosh.
They ran back to their campsite so scared that they packed up all their stuff and left right then and there.
So this wasn't just seeing something quickly. This is a full-blown aggressive encounter. It makes you wonder, are these creatures becoming more bold, like more willing to come after people?
It's a disturbing thought, and it's a good reminder that these aren't just spooky stories. We're talking about dangerous predators.
Yeah.
Unpredictable creatures that could be dangerous to humans.
Okay, so we've got Minnesota and Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
both with Dogman sightings. Where to next?
Let's go south to Kentucky. We have a lot of encounters from the land between the lakes area.
Heck
It's
yeah.
this huge wooded area that's in Kentucky and Tennessee.
That whole area already has a reputation for being a little spooky.
Yeah.
Adding a Dogman just takes it to another level.
Right, and these encounters are pretty unsettling.
Okay.
There's this guy who was outside with his dog,
Uh-huh.
and he heard this howl, but it wasn't a normal howl like anything he'd ever heard before. It sounded like a mix between a wolf and a human.
Wow.
He looked up and saw this big, dark figure standing on two legs on a hill about 100 yards away.
So again, with the standing upright thing, it's like a signature move for these creatures.
Totally. It's like this thing that's not human, not animal, but something in between.
Yeah.
He said it had a muscular body, a long snout, pointy ears, and these glowing yellow eyes. It stared at him for a few seconds and then turned and ran off into the woods.
Did he tell anyone? I mean, that seems like something you'd want to warn people about.
He said he didn't tell anyone at the time because he was afraid people would think he was crazy.
Right.
But he eventually shared his story online, and he said he still hears those howls in the woods at night, so he thinks there might be more of them out there.
Huh. Okay, that's one encounter, but you said there were others in Kentucky. What else do we have?
There's this woman who was hiking with her friend in Daniel Boone National Forest back in 2019.
Okay.
They were on a trail and came across this giant paw print bigger than a human hand.
Oh, wow.
5 toes long, sharp claws.
Okay, but that could be a bear, right?
Maybe, but they kept following the prints and got to a clearing where they found a dead deer. It was completely torn apart, blood everywhere.
Yeah, that's not something a bear usually does. This is definitely sounding like Dogman territory.
And then they heard a growl behind them and turned around, and there was this huge creature on 2 legs hiding behind a tree.
Oh, gosh.
She said it had black fur, a wolf-like head, and these glowing red eyes.
Really?
It snarled at them, showed its teeth, and they ran as fast as they could.
That's so scary. Sounds like they barely got away. And what was it doing with that deer? Was it eating? Was it trying to, like, lure them in?
It's impossible to know, but it does make you wonder about their behavior, how smart they are, and how dangerous they might be to humans.
Yeah, that's a good point. And speaking of dangerous, I have to tell you about this other Kentucky encounter. This one is really scary. There was an actual attack that these 2 fishermen saw on Kentucky Lake. An attack. Okay, this is where I officially get creeped out. What happened?
These 2 guys were fishing on the lake, and they saw another boat with 2 people in it, and then suddenly they heard screams coming from that boat.
Oh, no.
And then they saw this huge creature jump out of the water and onto the boat.
Out of the water? Are you saying this thing can swim too?
That's what they said, and it gets worse. He described this thing with brown fur, a human-like torso, and a dog-like head.
What?
It attacked the people on the boat, biting and clawing at them.
Oh my gosh, did anyone try to help?
The fishermen grabbed their guns and shot at the creature, but
Yeah.
it didn't even seem to notice. It just jumped back in the water and swam away.
Wow.
It was a horrible scene. They called 911, but by the time help got there, the people on the boat were dead.
That's awful. It just goes to show that these encounters aren't just scary stories. You know, they can have really tragic consequences.
It's true, and it makes you think, if these creatures are real, how do we live with them? How do we protect ourselves and our communities from something that seems to break all the rules of nature?
Those are questions that scientists and researchers, even law enforcement, are trying to figure out. You know, because the more of these stories we hear, the harder it is to say that it's all just made up.
Right, and these lake attacks raise another question for me. Are dogmen comfortable in water in other parts of the Midwest?
I don't know about you, but I'm not really eager to go swimming in any of those Midwestern lakes anytime soon.
Yeah, but we're not done yet. We still have a ton more encounters to talk about from Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa.
Okay.
And those stories raise even more questions about what these creatures are, how smart they are, and how dangerous they might be to humans.
Okay. Well, I'm ready for the next chapter in our Dogman saga. Let's keep going. Yeah. Those Kentucky lake attacks were pretty scary. But you were saying that dogmen are comfortable in the water in other parts of the Midwest. Are we going to see more of that as we go through these other encounters?
Well, we'll see that they're comfortable near water for sure. Like in Indiana, we have a bunch of reports from there. And Indiana's kind of different, you know? It's not like those other states with all the forests. It's more farmland and suburbs.
So you're saying even in like the land of cornfields and basketball, people are seeing dogmen?
It seems that way. We have this report from Floyd County back in 2020.
Okay.
This guy was out near his property, and he saw this big wolf-like creature standing up on 2 legs.
Huh?
He described it as having dark brown fur, yellow eyes, pointy ears, and a long snout. You know, pretty standard dogman features.
Yeah, okay. But we've heard that description a lot. What makes this Indiana encounter special?
Well, it wasn't just watching him. It growled at the guy before running away on all 4s.
Oh, wow. So another one that was potentially aggressive. It really makes you think that these creatures aren't afraid to let us know they don't want us around.
Yeah, and there's another Indiana report that's interesting because there might be physical evidence.
Oh, really?
This guy named Jerry was driving on Highway 30 near LaPorte in October 2019.
Okay.
And he saw this huge creature cross the road right in front of him. He said it was like 7 feet tall and covered in dark brown fur with a wolf head, pointy ears, yellow eyes.
Oh, my God.
He was so shocked, he pulled over and called his wife, and she told him to try and get a picture.
Did he get one? That would be amazing.
He didn't get a picture of the creature itself.
Oh.
But he did get a photo of its tracks. He said they were about 6 inches long with these clear claw marks.
Okay, so we have that. It's not like proof, but it does make you think that something big and weird was in the area.
Exactly. And it's interesting how many of these reports, like Jerry's and the one from Floyd County, they're seeing them near roads, near where people are. It's like they're not just hiding way out in the forest anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of unsettling.
It is. And we see the same thing in Illinois, which doesn't really have a lot of wilderness.
Right.
But even there, people are reporting dogman encounters.
So even in like the land of cornfields and big cities, these creatures are popping up?
Apparently, so there's this really good one from Custer Park,
Okay.
which is only about 45 miles from Chicago. This family said they saw this Big wolf-like creature multiple times.
Oh, wow.
And it was stalking their property at night.
Uh-huh.
They described it as having a muscular body, dark fur, yellow eyes, and a long snout.
Okay, so this wasn't just like a one-time thing. This family was being visited or maybe even targeted by this creature?
Yeah, and get this, they said it would sometimes stand up on two legs and look into their windows.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying. Like straight out of a nightmare, knowing that something like that is out there watching you, that gives me chills.
I know, it's creepy, right?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what are they do? Are they curious about us? Are they being territorial? Or is it something even worse?
Yeah, good question. And one we'll have to keep asking as we look into more encounters this time from Wisconsin, Missouri, and Iowa.
Okay.
What are some of the highlights from those states?
Well, Wisconsin, with all its forests and lakes, has a ton of Dogman sightings.
Right.
This guy named Chode was driving on Highway 8 near Barron, Wisconsin, back in July 2018, when he saw this big, dark creature running across the road. And what made him think it was a Dogman was that it was about 7 feet long and 4 feet tall at the shoulder.
Wow.
It had a wolf-like head, a muscular body, and a long tail.
Uh-huh.
But the really creepy part was it looked right at him with these bright yellow eyes, and it was snarling.
Yikes. So, again, with the aggression, it really makes you realize that we're not always at the top of the food chain, even in our modern world.
That's true. And remember how we were talking about dogmen and water?
Yeah.
Well, there's this report from Fox Lake, Illinois in June 2017 about a creature swimming in the lake. This guy and his friend were out on a boat, and at first they thought it was a bear. But then they saw that it had a dog head and a long tail. They actually followed it as it swam and watched it come out of the water.
Wow.
And then get this, it stood up on two legs,
Really?
showing this muscular chest and arms. It had these long claws on its hands and feet and a mane of fur around its neck.
Wow, that's incredible. They must have got a really good look at it.
They did, and he said he felt this sense of awe, but also fear. He later researched the whole Dogman thing and shared his story online.
It's amazing how the internet and podcasts like ours are letting people connect and share these experiences.
Yeah.
It must be comforting for people who've seen these things to know they're not alone.
I think so, and it helps us get a better idea of what's going on. Like in Missouri with all its different landscapes, the Ozarks, forests, and hills. It seems like a perfect place for dogmen. And there's this woman named Melly who talked about an encounter she had in St. Louis County in the summer of 2020.
Yep.
She was walking her dog in a park near her house when she heard this loud howl. She looked up and saw this giant creature running towards her on two legs.
Oh my gosh.
It had a dog face, long arms, claws, and a mane of hair around its neck. It was like 8 feet tall with reddish-brown fur.
Oh wow, that's so scary.
She grabbed her dog and ran home as fast as she could and locked all the doors.
That sounds terrifying, like something out of a nightmare. And speaking of nightmares, we still have to cover Iowa, right?
We do, and Iowa might be known for its farms and prairies, but they're getting dogman reports too. There's this one from Lynn County, Iowa that's really chilling because it involves a sheriff's deputy who saw one while he was on patrol.
A sheriff's deputy that makes it a lot more believable. These are people who are trained to be observant and report things accurately.
Right. He was near Cedar Lake around 2:30 in the morning when he saw this big, dark figure standing up on two legs near the railroad tracks.
Wow.
He carefully went towards it with his flashlight and saw that it had a wolf-like head, pointy ears, amber eyes, and a muscular body covered in black fur.
Wow.
It growled at him and then took off running on all fours, crossed the tracks, and vanished into the woods. He said it was about 7 feet tall and weighed like 300 pounds.
That's a really detailed account, and coming from a law enforcement officer, it's hard to just ignore it.
I know, it makes you wonder.
It does. So we've covered a lot of states: Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, and Iowa. That's a lot of dogman encounters.
It is. And when you look at all these states, there's a clear pattern. These big, powerful creatures that often walk on two legs, they're being seen by all kinds of people, campers, hikers, hunters, even police officers.
There's a lot to think about. Are these things a new species, a genetic mutation, or something else entirely, something we don't even have a name for yet?
That's the big question, right? And maybe there's not just one answer. Maybe it's a mix of things: misidentification, folklore, people's imaginations.
Yeah.
But then you have those weird details, the human-like hands, the glowing eyes, the fact that bullets don't seem to affect them. It makes you think that there might be something more to it, something we just don't understand yet.
It's a mystery that keeps fascinating and scaring us, and it reminds us that there's still so much we don't know about the world, maybe some things are better left unexplained.
Maybe you're right. But one thing's for sure, the legend of the Dogman is still going strong, and it seems like it's only getting stronger.
So next time you're out in the woods or even just driving down a country road at night, keep your eyes open and listen carefully. You never know what might be out there.
And remember, sometimes the scariest truths are the ones we can't explain a flame.